following President Trump's successful trip to the Persian Gulf region, the president announced that he would be removing all U.S. sanctions on Syria. This is what I call a high risk, high reward gamble, but one that, if achieved successfully, can actually prevent Syria from being a launching pad for more Iranian malign activity in the Eastern Mediterranean, and really play up the goal of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, which is to somehow return Syria to the Arab fold. But if it fails and there are attempts to withdraw troops and draw down sanctions, uh, the Washington would have ended up empowering a jihadist government in Damascus that does not have full control over its own territory. So the gamble is a high risk, high reward move, but one that is looking towards the long term of flipping Syria and trying to change the strategic situation, both in the northern tier of the Middle East as well as on Israel's doorstep. Well, the way Tehran traditionally responds to these sorts of things is with patience. The Islamic Republic has an ideological view of the way the region should be oriented and has put time, money, resources, blood, and treasure towards that. And what it's looking for the West right now to do is for the West to take the pressure off of the regime, off of its proxies, to have political space emerge between Washington and Jerusalem, and for Washington and Jerusalem to make mistakes in the region as they try to push towards bigger picture things like flipping Syria or regional peace and stability. And it is there that in the interim, while Washington focuses up on building up states, that Tehran will focus on building up proxies and partners. And then whenever there is a downtrodden or dispossessed person in a war zone or in a conflict zone, that person, that is Tehran's angle of entry back into a conflict. And precisely this has been Iran's strategy, shifting and waiting and looking to exploit opportunities across the entire northern tier of the Middle East, from Iraq to Syria to Lebanon. And so, whether you're looking at potentially the Kurds or much more likely the Alawites, there are certain groups that Tehran may look to pry upon, particularly if they feel like they don't have Western cover or a voice in a new Syria. Disarray and exploiting disarray is a specialty of the Islamic Republic. So, if Washington is going to be working more politically and economically in that part of the world, or looking to at least relieve some of those tensions, it's going to have to make sure whatever kind of government emerges in Damascus is going to be accountable and representative of all of its people and taking all of those views, values, and interests into account. But again, that doesn't necessarily sound like things like the administration is keen to do much more longer term in the Middle East, because it does sound a heck of a lot more like nation building, and was the reason why many Republicans opposed the way Washington was half in and half out with Syria over the past decade. But again, make no mistake, Iran is an equal opportunity offender when it comes to supporting transnational terrorists. And just because there are many Al Qaeda offshoots and affiliates that still do not work with the new government in Damascus, that does not create a prohibition or a high bar for the Islamic Republic. Iran could try to mask the way it funds some of these groups, or tries to win over the support of some of these groups. We know Iran has had something of a permissive relationship with Al Qaeda briefly in the past, something of playing footsie with the Taliban while the Americans were in Afghanistan in the past. So I would not be totally surprised that in an attempt to fail to win over Alawites and Kurds, the regime could try to cause havoc in Damascus and support internecine kind of Sunni on Sunni violence as well. Remember, Iran really rode the wave of the civil war in Iraq during the peak period of U.S. occupation of that country in the mid 2000s. Well, traditionally, Iran has linked the regional file with the nuclear file in its behavior. Sometimes it escalates in one theater, de escalates in another, makes up for one gain in one theater by doing something else in another. But at this current state in time, given the fragile proxy network, the imperative for the Islamic Republic is to first make sure its proxies and partners in the Middle East first survive before they can thrive. Thanks to Israel's military successes, some of them backstopped by America in 2024, much of this proxy network is down, but it is not at all out. And that's why, again, Tehran is going to be playing the long game. It's going to be running the clock when it comes to American and Israeli patience for what the future regional order could look like. And it's going to be running the clock at the nuclear negotiating table as well, to benefit from, as long as possible, no Israeli strikes on its territory and a termination or a lapse of the EU snapback, which does expire in the fall of this year.